Okay, so I said I wasn't going to bang on about the transfer window. I don't want to bang on about the transfer window, okay? Who does, right? It's done. There's no point crying over spilt milk. We are where we are. We gambled. It didn't pay off. We're in a bit of trouble now, okay? Rather than banging on about it for the next few months, I think we should start to try and think about how we make the best of what is undoubtedly a bad situation. Don't be a glass half empty guy. Be a glass half full guy. I think that's really, really important in life, generally. Not that I'm here to give life advice. But anyway, my big fear is that during the January transfer window, where it was clear that we needed something, and even going back as far as last summer when it was clear that we probably needed another centre forward option, I think it's fair to say we'd all realised by last summer that Gabriel Jesus probably wasn't going to be the same player that arrived at the football club ever again. Okay, he's had a little bit of a renaissance this season during a very short period of time before he picked up the ACL injury. But generally speaking, we knew that he wasn't going to cut it from last summer. We didn't buy a striker because the player that we wanted was not available. We went into January needing a striker, having lost not just Bukayo Saka, but Gabriel Jesus as well. And again, we decided that the right player wasn't out there for us. So now we find ourselves in the present day. And for a minute, I think we need to stop thinking about how fans are reacting and stop putting too much weight on that. Okay, fans have their opinions. Fans have their ups and downs with their football clubs. Fans are happy when the team's winning. They're unhappy when the team's not winning. And you could buy all the great players in the world, but you go and lose a match, which can happen at any time in football. And all of a sudden, you know, the mood is down again. Everybody's questioning the signings. Everybody's asking if we know what we're doing, if the sporting director's good or bad or whatever. Football is very up and down. So the opinion of the fans, it's important, of course, and I include myself as a fan, right? So I'm not shitting on my own opinion and the value of it. What I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to convey is that we will have our moments as fans where we have ups and we have downs. And although I think the club would do well to listen to what some of the fans have to say, to gauge the mood among the fans, to understand what the general consensus and feeling is, it's a dangerous path to go down if you listen to every single fan and take into consideration every single opinion and ignore the fact that you, in your position, should be qualified to make those decisions yourself. So if one guy stands outside the Emirates with a camera and rants and it goes viral and it hits tens and 20s of millions of views, that doesn't necessarily mean that that one guy is right. Okay, so you've got to gauge the fan opinion. And I know for a fact that the club do this, but you've also got to be sensible enough to know what is noise, what is constructive criticism, what reflects the wider fan base's feelings. You've got to be able to, once you get those opinions, put them into categories. Okay, general fan opinion, overreactive fan opinion, and just a guy being very, very loud and a whole bunch of noise. You've got to be able to do that. I think that's really, really important in the club's roles that entail this gauging of the fans' views and taking the temperature, if you like, of the fan base. But over the course of yesterday, when we were discussing this, when we were talking about this, and when I sat down with Phil Costa, and again, another plug for the last episode, go back and have a listen and check it out if you like. Over the course of yesterday, I started to think a lot about what the feeling might be internally in the aftermath of this transfer window. I think Mikel Arteta made it very, very clear throughout the press conference, and I don't think he's ever been as open about what Arsenal want and need in the transfer window as he has been over the course of the last month. So I find it very, very hard to believe that he was satisfied with the window. The noise coming out might be, Arteta agreed, if we didn't find the right guy, we don't push forward, etc., etc. But I find it impossible to believe that he's totally satisfied with the fact that he's ended up with no one. Even more so probably now that he's lost Martinelli and that he's lost Kai Havertz. So I think about the manager. He's probably frustrated. I think about the players. They must be frustrated too. If you are David Raya, William Saliba, Gabriel, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka watching on from the sidelines, Martin Odegaard, you're probably looking at this situation and saying, we have given our absolute all over the last few years. We've had to improve. We've had to be consistent. We've had to put our bodies on the line. We've had to push ourselves to the very limits in order to make sure that we're available and make sure that we can play in the way that we're being asked to play. We've fallen short on a couple of occasions now. We've got that motivation to go again, which I don't always think is a given, by the way. I think often when you go really close to something, it can be quite hard to pick yourself up and go again. But for those players who have managed to do that, who have managed to get their mentality right to be able to push and go again, and have done that even when physically they've been on their knees. You look at Declan Rice when he came back from the Euros, didn't look the same player. You look at Kai Havertz having to pick himself up physically after a really long summer with very, very little break. The fact that all of those guys were ready for the very beginning of the season and ready to go again. They must think we're putting our blood, sweat and tears into this. But having failed to bring in a forward and now having suffered the injuries that we have, they must think we're giving it everything. We want it. But do the club? Now, I'm not even saying that the club don't. Okay, they tell us that they couldn't find the right player. Maybe that's true. Who knows? Maybe they really, really tried. Maybe they tried to do things that we had no idea about. Maybe. I can't say because I don't know. But what I can say is if I was a player who's given my all to get this team to where it is today, who's desperate to get over the line and be successful, watching our attacking players dropping like flies, come the end of the window, and maybe even more so after the two sort of latest injuries, I'm probably sitting there at the very least asking the question, how ambitious is this football club? How ambitious are they really? Because we can all see it. We train day in, day out with our teammates. We could see that Bukayo Saka needed a break, didn't get one, ended up getting this horrible hamstring injury that is seen him miss a significant portion of our season. We all knew that Kai Havertz was running on empty, having worked incredibly hard throughout the campaign, doing all sorts of work, being available pretty much every game. You're looking at that, and especially for those guys that are down on the ground, that are there at London Colney every single day, working hard, know the guys on a personal level. They're probably looking at it and going, we knew this was going to happen. And you as a football club have not done enough to protect us against this. So even if it's not the type of question that's really kind of chipping away at them and eating away at them and got them knocking on the manager's door and the hierarchy's door to ask these questions and to raise these points, somewhere subconsciously as a player, you're going to think, did we really do what we could have done? Did we really do everything within our power to protect ourselves against this? And so you start to question the ambition. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe a week or so ago, that we were discussing rumors linking William Saliba with a move to Real Madrid. There's been plenty of conversations over the last few years about Bukayo Saka as he's been on the rise. People starting to ask the question, well, will he stay at Arsenal if they don't win the game's major honours, if they don't win the biggest trophies? In the case of someone like William Saliba in particular, who isn't an Arsenal lad, if you like. He's an Arsenal player and we welcome him with open arms. He had a rough ride at the start, loan spells, not being registered, all of that stuff happened. And, I think credit to him, he's been able to move past that and really establish himself as one of the key players. And it looks to me like he's really enjoying life at Arsenal. But what happens once Real Madrid start to get into your ear? If Real Madrid are getting into your ear, for example, that subconscious thought that you might have had about the lack of ambition at the club, that can very easily come to the forefront of your mind. And you can start to question if Arsenal fall short again, which I think is the most likely outcome. I'm not saying it's all done and dusted and we shouldn't turn up for the rest of the season, but it is the most likely outcome when you consider where we're at, how far we're behind Liverpool at the minute, the injuries that we have, the problems, the struggles, etc., etc. When you think about all of that, you do understand why there might come a point in the not too distant future where some of our very best players are starting to wonder if they're ever going to achieve what they want to achieve at Arsenal. And football is a short career. And there will come a point where these players get a bit panicky, get a bit jittery, and think, bloody hell, I need to move on because I need to win something. We've seen it happen so many times, not just with our own club, but with other clubs as well. It's a very common thing in football. So, yeah, I just wonder. I just wonder if we're going to find ourselves in a situation 12 or so months down the line, if we don't manage to get over the line in one of these big competitions. I just wonder if we're going to find ourselves in a place where some of our best players are starting to question whether or not they'll be able to achieve what it is they want to achieve at this football club. And once heads are turned, it's a big problem. A massive part of maintaining success is, people talk about regeneration and bringing in new players and all the rest of it, but it's also about maintaining the harmony within the key components that you already have. And I just wonder if we have more underwhelming windows moving forward, if that's going to start to become a thing in the minds of some of our most sought after players. And when I say this, I'm thinking of your Sakas, I'm thinking of your Salibas, I'm thinking of your big Gabbies, I'm thinking about, I don't think he's had a great season, but I'm thinking of your Martin Odegaards. Are we going to get to that point sooner rather than later if we don't get over the line? And there's no guarantee that you get over the line. That's the really difficult thing about football and about this sport. You would have thought at the start of this season, this was Arsenal's season. Yet a load of things have gone against us. And we've ended up in a position where it's more than likely that it isn't that it isn't going to be Arsenal's season. So I do wonder what the feeling is like internally after that transfer window. And even more so after the recent injuries to Martinelli and Havertz. Is there a real feeling of frustration now towards the club? Does it exist within the group of players? Does it exist within the minds of a handful of players? Does it exist within Mikel Arteta now?